Welcome back. Today we're going to start a new chapter, chapter 20, lesson 1, comparison of adjectives and adverbs. And this lesson is extremely important because it helps you determine when to use different degrees of comparison and how to use them with precision, especially when I'm targeting essay writing or when I want to overcome those complicated SAT questions that we get on the language section. So to start off, I want to introduce the meaning of degrees of comparison. There are 3 degrees: the positive, the comparative, and the superlative degree. So let's start with the positive degree. Positive degree is when I'm stating any statement that contains a description of an opinion or a thing or a person. It's simply adding an adjective or an adverb to the sentence to convey more meaning. So keep in mind that the positive degree shows no comparison at all, and it's just a description of an action, a person, or a thing. For example, this route to the track meet is quick. Now, quick is an adjective that modifies route, and I can notice no comparison is being made. It's just a positive response toward the route. Same thing for adverbs. Brad can run fast. Fast is an adverb modifying the verb phrase can run. And again, it's an adverb that shows me how Brad can run, and no comparison is being made. So the second degree of comparison is the comparative degree, and from its name I can notice that I'm comparing, so comparison is being made in the comparative degree. And it's only comparison between 2 people, 2 things, or 2 actions. Now, how can I achieve that? I can either add an ER to the word itself, or I can add more to the word depending on how many syllables the word is, which is something we will discuss in a moment. So, out of the 2 routes to the track meet, this one is quicker. Notice ER added to quick at the end to show me that this route is quicker than the other one. So I have 2 routes being compared to one another, and I'm telling you that this one is quicker. I add ER to the word quick to convey the comparative degree. Adverbs: of the 2 runners, Brad can run faster. ER was added to fast in order to tell me that the way Brad can run is faster than the way the other runner can run. So again, 2 runners, 2 different ways of running are being compared. ER is added to fast in order to convey the comparative degree. Now, if I want to move to the last degree, it is the superlative degree. And from its name, I can deduce that something is superior to other stuff. Something shows superiority to other groups or other actions or other people. So more than 2 people or things or actions are being compared. And how do I achieve that? I have to add est to the end of the word, or I can add most to the word. So, of the 3 routes to the track meet, this one is quickest. Notice est added to quick in order to tell me that this one is the quickest of all 3 routes. So again, more than 2 things are being compared here. Of all the runners in the race, Brad can run fastest. est is added to fast in order to tell me that the way Brad can run is the fastest way of all in comparison to other ways that runners run. So if I want to add a little note, I can say that I have 3 degrees of comparison, the first one being positive, where no comparison is made. The second one being comparative, where two people, things, or actions are being compared. And the third one is superlative, where more than two people, things, or actions are compared. Okay, so I'm gonna leave this note over here. This is the first part of the lesson. Now let's move on to the second part, which is when do I decide to add EST or ER, and when do I add more and most. So this depends on the number of syllables the word is made up of. Let's start with something called regular comparison, which is, think of it as regular verbs, where you stick to the same form of the word, but you add to it a couple of letters or another word in order to convey a different meaning. Same thing applies here. I'm sticking to the same word, but I'm adding to it either ER or EST, depending on the degree of comparison, or I'm adding more and most, but keeping the word as it is. So, the first subtitle is one-syllable modifiers. And those modifiers are, so what those have in common is that they are all made up of one syllable. How do I determine the number of syllables? I'm going to be snapping or clapping, whichever makes you comfortable, and then I'm going to decide what should I add to the word. So there's this rule. If it's one syllable modifier, then I'm adding ER and EST. For example, young. So young, one syllable. Comparative form of young is younger. Superlative form of young is youngest. Hot, hotter, hottest. Soon, sooner, soonest. Green, greener, greenest. So whenever I have a one syllable modifier, it's always going to take ER or EST, again depending on what the question is asking of me. Is it the comparative degree or is it the superlative degree? Now, you might encounter some words that are a violation to this rule, so an exception. For example, fierce or sane. Those are one syllable words, but they cannot take ER or EST, so I have to add more or most to them. It's just a side note. If you encounter such words, do not freak out. Do not try to add ER or EST to them, because it's not going to work. And keep in mind there are a couple of other words that violate this rule as well. So this is just a side note for you. Moving on, two-syllable modifiers. Two-syllable modifiers can be a mix-up for some students because they can either take ER or EST, or you have to add more or most to the word. Again, how can I know? You cannot know. You're gonna have to try first adding ER or EST, and if that doesn't work, then add more or most, again depending on what is the question asking of you. So graceful, two-syllable. So this means I'm gonna first try to add ER or EST. Gracefuller does not exist in English, so this means I'm gonna have to add more graceful for the comparative and most graceful for the superlative. Early, two-syllable modifier. First I'm gonna try to add an ER, earlier, Yes, it works. It is a word. So earliest works is a word as well. Slowly, 2-syllable modifier. And I'm going to try to add ER or EST, slowlier or slowliest. This is not a word in English, so I'm going to go to the second option, add more slowly or most slowly. So 2-syllable modifiers can give you a little of a hard time, but keep in mind, add at the beginning ER or EST. If that doesn't work, then you move on to the second option. So going for the third subtitle, for regular comparison, you have the 3-syllable modifiers. 3-syllable modifiers, they only take more or most. Easy, straightforward. So dangerous, dangerous, 3-syllable modifier. Comparative, more dangerous. Superlative, most dangerous. Rapidly, comparative, more rapidly. Most rapidly. Furious, 3-syllable, more furious, most furious. So if I want to sum up so far, under regular modifiers, I have the 1-syllable, which takes ER or EST. I have the 2-syllable, which takes ER or EST or more and most. And I have the 3-syllable modifier, which takes only more and most. How do I know how many syllables? You have to snap. Now, if I move to the negative comparison, I don't care how many syllables the word is, because the negative comparison is always going to be less for the comparative and least for the superlative. So it doesn't matter how many syllables is tasty. It's 2 syllables, but I don't care if I'm conveying a negative comparison, because I'm going to add less tasty for comparative and least tasty for superlative. Steadily, same thing. I don't care how many number of syllables it is. When I'm talking about negative comparisons, I only have less and least and no other option. Now, if I move to irregular comparisons, think of them such as irregular verbs. So this means I'm going to change the whole form of the word into another word in order to convey the meaning I need. So they never take ER or EST. Emphasis on never. Never add badder or baddest. So you cannot add ER to bad. You cannot add EST to bad. You cannot say more bad or most bad. It's only gonna be a different word. And this is a table of irregular modifiers. So if I say I liked that movie the mostest, this is wrong. I cannot add EST to most because most is already a superlative form of many. So this makes no sense. And since many is an irregular modifier, then most is its superlative degree. So the correct form will be I liked that movie the most. Bad, badly, and ill have a common comparative, worse, and common superlative, worst. Good and well have a common comparative, better, common superlative, best. Little, less, and least. Many and much, more, and most. So again, irregular comparisons never take ER or EST. You have to change the whole form of the word into something else in order to convey the meaning, depending on the degree the question is asking of you. Before I move on, let's add an example to test our knowledge. So if I say the chef's recipe or the chef's old recipe is good, but I think I like the new one blank. So here I'm comparing the old recipe to the new recipe. So I'm comparing two things. So I'm going to use the comparative. So this is out of the way. And now I look at the sentence and I see good. So what's the comparative form of good, which is an irregular comparison? It's going to be better. Okay. Another example would be of all the types of pizza, I like margarita the blank. And again, this depends on what you prefer. So I have of all the types of pizza, and I have so many types, so this is definitely more than two. So I'm going to use the superlative form. So you like it either the most or the least, again depending on what you prefer or what you want to convey, a positive response or a negative response. So this is pretty much it. Let's move on to practice your skills. We have to write the comparative form and the superlative form of each modifier present. Let's start with number 1. Now week, we need to see how many syllables, and then we decide if it's going to take ER, EST, more, most. Okay? So week, 1 syllable, so it's going to be weaker, weakest. 2. Hurriedly, 3 syllables, so it's going to be more hurriedly and most hurriedly. Okay, number 3. Good. Now, I'm not going to waste my time snapping and seeing how many syllables is good, because good is an irregular comparison, so it's going to be better and best. 4. Horrible. 3. So more horrible and most horrible. 5. Busy. 2 syllable. So let's try first adding ER, EST. If that works, then we're gonna stick with it. If not, then we're gonna add more and most. So busy, busier, busiest. Yes, it does exist. So there you go. Number 6. Light, light. 1 syllable, lighter and lightest. Number 7. Different, 3 syllables, so more, different and most different. Number 8. Bad, again bad is irregular, so it's going to be worse or worst. Number 9. Great, 1 syllable, so greater, greatest. 10. Unsafe, 2 syllables, so let's try to add ER. Unsafer, unsafest, this does not exist in English, so we're gonna go with more unsafe and most unsafe. 11. Little. Now little is a 2 syllable modifier. We are familiar with more little and most little, but actually there exists littler and littlest. So again, this is an exception to the 2 syllable modifiers. You can say littler or littlest, and you can also say more or most or less or least. Okay. Moving to number 12, quickly. Now quickly is a 2 syllable modifier. Let's try adding ER, quicklier, quickliest. Doesn't make any sense, so I'm gonna say more quickly most quickly. 13. Clever, clever, two-syllable modifier, cleverer, cleverer, or cleverest. Doesn't make any sense. So more clever and most clever. 14. Many, it's irregular, so it's going to be more and most. 15. Swift is a one-syllable modifier, swift, so it's going to be swifter and swiftest. So this is pretty much practice your skills forming the comparison of modifiers. If we move on to the second one, we have to circle the best modifier in parentheses to convey the meaning. So let's start with number 1. Of the 3 boys, Colin devised the better or best game plan. I have Colin being compared to of the 3 boys, so this is more than 2, so I'm gonna go for the superlative form, so best. Rita's, not Amy's kite, flew higher or highest. So I'm comparing Rita's kite to Amy's kite and how high the kites did fly. So 2 comparative, so higher. John swam across the pool more or most rapidly than Ty. Again, how did John swim against how did Ty swim? 2 different actions, so I'm gonna go with the comparative form, which is more. Number 4. Which sport do you like better or best? Football, basketball, or tennis? 3 different sports are being compared. I go to the superlative form, so it's best. 5. Which has the more or most photogenic mascot? Our high school or theirs? So our high school's mascot is being compared to theirs. 2 different schools, 2 different mascots, so comparative, so it's going to be more. Number 6. Of your 2 friends who play soccer, which one is more or most athletic? So I'm comparing 2 different people and 2 different ways of playing soccer, and who of those 2 is more athletic because it's a comparative degree. Which city has the larger or largest sports arena, Dallas or San Francisco? So I'm comparing Dallas's arena to San Francisco's. So 2, so comparative, so larger. 8. Since there are 2 acceptable candidates for team captain, the coach has to choose the better or best one. Since there are 2, then I'm going for comparative, so the better one. Number 9. I don't know which I like less or least, running laps or doing push-ups. I'm comparing this action to another action. Only 2 actions are involved, comparative form, so it is less. And number 10, Alex is the louder or loudest of all the fans. I'm comparing Alex to all the other fans, so superlative, so loudest. So this is lesson 1 of chapter 20. I hope it was clear, and I'll see you for lesson 2 hopefully.